Welcome back to the Property Playbook. We're your hosts, Alana Saraditas
and Erica Reddy-Shaquette.
And today we're going to talk about the rental market. Now, whether you're an avid investor, you're looking to buy, you're looking to sell, I feel like we should be covering a little bit of everything in our podcast topics. So if you are looking to rent, this is the podcast for you.
I like it. I think this is great. We haven't really covered on this. And I think the rental market's had swings of being so competitive, multiple offers, no offers, things sitting, things not sitting. So I think this is a perfect time. Let's dive into what we're seeing in the Toronto rental market right now.
Things are slow.
Agreed.
Things are slow. A lot. Like I'm going to say it multiple times. A lot of...
Did you get that? A lot. Everybody, we're on a lot.
A lot of buildings took occupancy right now.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? That means pre-construction condos have now been able to occupy. Those units are brand new units that have flooded the market with inventory. A bunch of buildings took occupancy around the exact same time. So there is a lot of options, a lot. We're going to keep saying that. That's the word of the episode, a lot. There's a lot of options out there for the consumer. So if they are looking for a rental right now, there is a great opportunity for you. Do I think that this opportunity will remain in the coming months? You know what's happening. We're heading into the summer months. People and school, they come back. People start moving in the summer. It happens, but we do have a lot of inventory right now.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think the challenge, as a landlord is costs are expensive. It's expensive to carry right now. It's expensive to break even. I mean, goodness, I've had a couple landlords recently reach out to me and say, okay, I need to reprice. My tenants moved out. Let's talk about repricing. This is roughly where I need it to be to break even or to hit a profit. And I'm like, yeah, sorry, the market's not meeting you there right now. And so there's some tough conversations to be had in what a landlord can offer a property for and also what a tenant's willing to pay. And then with downward pressure on rental prices with increased inventory, it means that as a landlord, you've got to be prepared to either be potentially taking a loss or feeding the property and or, pricing it so that you can actually get it moved, or having the flexibility to say, this is my price and I'm going to be super, super patient because I need this to get it rented. And so there's a lot of flux happening right now.
I'm a landlord myself, and I'm going to say it. If you are a landlord and you are looking to break even or cash flow positive, you have to remember one crucial thing. How much is a good tenant worth versus how much would you pay to get a bad tenant out?
Oh my gosh. A good tenant is worth
the earth, the moon, and the stars.
Everything.
So when it comes to pricing, I would rather take a bit of a loss and know that I have a fantastic tenant than to go for that amazing number, only have one option and be stuck with that one option that might not be fantastic, than to go a little bit lower and get options. You want to have options as a landlord.
Yes.
Now, as a tenant, you're going in, get your paperwork in order.
Oh,
there is a lot more paperwork involved in rentals than there are in sales.
Lots.
A lot.
Like we're talking your
Stacks.
entire, like shy of your firstborn and your fingerprint, you're pretty much forking everything else over.
So in terms of documents you should have ready, we're talking about employment letter, we're talking about your credit report, we're talking about photo ID, we're talking about last 3 pay stubs. Those should all be ready and sent to your agent in the rental application.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm getting there. Don't worry.
Sorry. Okay. Slow down. She's like, I'm on this. Don't even. Yeah.
It's coming. But that's the stuff you need to have ready before you even start looking. Like, get your ducks in a row. You don't go shopping before getting your pre-approval. You don't go hunting for a rental before you have all those documents ready to go. Now, even in a non-as competitive market, the person with the cleanest paperwork and the most organized clients usually tend to be favored.
Absolutely. And I think one thing I always say to people is if you're looking to rent, be available and or actually offer it up in your application to jump on a Zoom call or a FaceTime with the landlord and or the agent, because even with this perfectly prepared stack of paper, when somebody's renting out their asset to you, it goes a long way when they can connect a name to a face and kind of put the paperwork to the person. And so I've had a lot of situations where a client goes, is it offside to ask for this? And I go, no, not at all. And 9 times out of 10, it's either really allowed us to vet the candidate further and have the client feel so comfortable with the choice of proceeding with them, or it's had something just feel a bit off for whatever reason, and they've been able to move on and wait for the next applicant that feels like the right fit.
So believe it or not, that's actually a requirement in my vetting.
I love it.
The last step always is a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And most times, like I work with a lot of investors. So most times my clients are like, if you would take them, then we'll take them.
Right.
I hate that answer, by the way. Like you put me in such a difficult position because I'm like, oh my God, they better be the most amazing tenants known to man. But I get it. It's if you would take someone like this, then I would take someone like this. That's where the comfort level comes from.
It's so funny because I would say without fail, this is jumping around a little bit, but clients always turn to my home inspector and go, well, would you buy a house? And he goes, I can't answer that. It's a bit like this. Well, as long as you love the tenant, then I'll love the tenant. You're like, but this is...
No.
Yeah.
Because if things go sideways, and this is as representing landlords, if things go sideways, who is the landlord going to blame? The agent. They're never going to blame anyone other than the agent. So our vetting is very, very extensive. So even though you're submitting all these documents, be prepared for them to be looked over,
of course,
verified. If you sign, and you will, because you can't submit an offer to move without signing a rental application. When you sign a rental application, you are giving anyone you submit that application the right to pull your credit. We will pull it. It will happen. It is much better to state upfront why your credit is the way it is than for us to find that an error was made in the credit you pulled and an error was made in the credit we pulled.
Yep. Definitely.
The numbers need to line up.
Yep.
If the numbers don't line up, and I've taken people with low credit, it's happened.
Yeah. Well, listen, things happen. I mean, there are situations where people forget about like a phone or a this or a credit card, and you end up with this terrible credit score. And it's just a result of being like, listen, I'm human. Let me show you. Like, it's closed. It's been closed for forever. I forgot I had it. Whatever. I signed up for Costco. I didn't, which reminds me, I need to pay my Costco credit card as we now have this conversation. But it's human nature.
But I usually tell agents when they're submitting to me, and that's the case, send it with a letter stating why.
Yes.
It is the way it is.
Yes.
Like, give me some context. Like, oh, it's low because, I went to university. Maybe I messed around in the first couple of years and this happened and like I'm working towards it. And you can see like my payments have been on time ever since then.
Yep.
Like mistakes happen.
Yep.
And most people are reasonable.
Yes.
If you explain it properly, like we'll be okay with it.
Yeah.
But it comes down to communication and how you're presenting the information. The next is paperwork needs to be organized.
Yes.
And they need to be real.
Yes.
And I'm saying this because you would be shocked at how many offers we get daily that there's fraudulent documents in it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the one big thing that I always say is driver's license above all from an ID standpoint, and then verify that driver's license, because that driver's license can be verified and you can actually see if it's valid or not. And that's a critical piece of the process. There's so many things that you need to do to really make sure that everybody is who they say they are. That's really important. And I feel like it's like anything. If you, as a landlord, you get a passport, you're probably like, wow, like this is so official. You're not going to think, okay, well, I got a passport, now I should ask for a driver's license. You're going to think I got the passport. No, you need the driver's license and you need to verify the driver's license identity or identity. Would that be the right
identification?
Word? No, but verify
the identity. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Or authenticity.
Authenticity.
There we go. Words are hard. So yeah, 100%. Like that's part of the vetting process. We need to verify all the documents that are given are valid, are accurate. Nothing has changed. And now we're flipping a little bit to the landlord side.
Yeah.
Like if you're vetting applications, don't take any information at face value. Like when someone represents the tenant, they get the information and they forward it to you. They didn't verify that information.
Correct.
So it is really on you and your agent to verify that that information is accurate.
Yeah.
We don't know where they came from.
And I think that's a really fair point. I think I don't want to say the difference, but I think one of the big differences in a tenant hiring an agent versus a buyer hiring an agent is there's a different process to it. A buyer is really out there to make, one of the largest financial investments they're ever going to make. And they really get to know that agent before they, get on the road. In other cases, you've got newcomers to Canada. You've got people that are looking for they need a rental. They, speak to somebody says, call this agent jumps in, boom, they start looking at rentals. That relationship typically isn't as
intense,
founded or intense as it would be with a buyer's agent. So to your point, as an agent, if you're getting documents and you're like, how do you know the tenant? And they're like, oh, I literally picked them up from the airport yesterday. Okay, well...
or Facebook or Kijiji or whatever.
100%.
Like I ask every single time an agent brings me an offer, how do you know them? Because there is a difference between, oh, they're actually friends with one of my clients and that's how I met them, or online. And it's fine. You came online. That's completely fine. Like, a lot of my agents find people online. Like, that's completely fine. It's marketing. But we need to know more about them.
Yeah.
We need to have some sort of background story. Like, why are they looking to move? Like, why now? Why this position? Why are they taking it so quickly? Why do they want to take it so far away? Like, how heavy are they negotiating?
Yeah. What are they paying up front or not paying up front? What are they capable? Because, I mean, in some cases, you can have a situation where maybe the whole entire document envelope doesn't necessarily meet expectations, but a tenant's coming forward and saying, I'll pay you a year up front. Okay, well, that sounds great, but why?
It's not only why, it's how legal is that?
That too.
And like, if they do pay you the full year up front, what's stopping them from contacting the LTB tomorrow and saying, hey, the landlord collected the full year up front. Can I get my money back? What's stopping them?
Absolutely.
So I do think that you need to be extremely cautious about the whole take the year up front, because what happens after that year?
Absolutely. And I think it's also really important to probably dive. The LTB is kind of an interesting segue, but I think it's important to dive into the LTB. So the landlord tenant board.
Don't get me started.
Well, I think it's really important because it's obviously a governing body out there to protect both landlords and tenants. Having said that, I would say most people feel that it heavily favors the tenant and not the landlord. That could be a controversial statement, but I'm going to put it out there.
Are you filming steam coming out of my ears? Like, is it happening? Like, I think the LTB sucks.
You were right here.
Bold statement, I know. And hopefully they never play this in the LTB if I'm ever there. Because, yeah. I absolutely think it's kangaroo court. And like, whatever ends up happening there, it's like, if you got a favorable judge for a tenant or landlord or whatever, like, it's mostly on the tenant side. It is. And anyone that tells me it's on the landlord side, please bring me verification. Like, I want evidence that they are strongly, heavily on the landlord side. I think the LTB needs to restructure completely. I think they need to fund money into fixing the LTB. And if they fix the LTB, they actually will solve a lot of problems with landlords and tenants, because not all tenants are bad.
Nope.
And not all landlords are bad.
Correct.
But it's the small part of the really shitty landlords and the really, really shitty tenants that make these policies possible.
Yep.
And it's not fair.
Yep.
It's absolutely not fair, because a fantastic landlord can get bad luck and get one of those shitty tenants and they're screwed.
Yep.
And it can be financial ruin.
100%. And this is why I think getting the right tenant in the first place is so important, and really never having to rely on the LTB is the other part of this.
But that shouldn't be
I know.
it.
I know.
The LTB needs to be fair. What they need to do, and this is in my opinion, they need to start putting money into fixing the system completely. You need a hearing date next day. Like, I apply, I get a hearing date.
Yeah, because hearing dates, just in case anyone does not know, we're talking months.
6 months to a year. It
Yes.
could be even longer depending on it. So let's have a real conversation. The real conversation is this. If you are a landlord and you take a risk on an application, what are the chances you will take a risk knowing that if things go sideways, it is 6 months to a year of potentially not getting paid rent? If they trash your place, you potentially have no way of getting out of there. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. You're really helpless.
Then people without perfect paperwork are forking over a year up front.
Right.
Are getting into really, really shitty places in further locations when they could have just needed an opportunity. And no one will give them a chance, because if the landlord gives you a chance, they're signing up for, if things go sideways, I'm screwed.
Yeah, it's really sideways. And I think that's the big challenge, is nobody wants to be in that situation where they're like, wow, it's this or it's this. And the extreme is extreme. And, you know,
look, I would take a chance on tenants any day of the week. If I knew if things went sideways, I could apply to the LTB and get them out. I would take a chance on everyone. People with not perfect paperwork would have a home. No problem, no questions asked. Everything is great. Like, here's a property, come live there. You needed a chance. Here.
Yep.
And then I know that LTB has my back if things go sideways. I cannot take a chance with the LTB. I don't advise my clients to take a chance with the LTB.
I agree.
I am so strict on paperwork that I would arguably say I'm one of the hardest agents to get past with tenants that don't have perfect paperwork.
Yeah.
And we property manage. We property manage for our clients.
Yeah.
Like, we take care of a lot of inventory for them. And like, knock on wood, like knock on everything. None of us, like, we're scared completely about the LTV. I've had offers on property, multiple, like we have a ton of inventory right now on the market for rent. We just talked about it. There is inventory. We've had offers and I've advised my clients against the offers. And that's the difference between them sitting empty for an extra month, for 2 months, for 3 months, which costs a lot of money. Carrying these properties cost a lot of money.
But you are better to sit empty for a month or 2 or 3 to get the right tenant than you are to rush to get it rented and get the wrong tenant.
100%. So definitely that is the reason why the rental market is the way it is. They need to first fix the landlord-tenant board. And once they fix that, I think there's going to be more landlords that are willing to take chances. Like, they're making all these rules right now about Airbnbs. I don't know how familiar you are with the Airbnb policies in Toronto, but they're making them even stricter.
I was going to say, I'm up the curve to the point of strictness. Am I at the stricter level? I don't even know. I feel like every time I open my eyes, there's a new...
They're making it extremely, extremely difficult for you to run an Airbnb. The reason why they're making it difficult is because they believe in their hearts of hearts, if they take away the Airbnb market, that there is going to be more inventory on the long-term market. Fake news. Let me tell you why it's fake news. In Toronto, to run an Airbnb, it needs to be your principal resident. So what are you bringing to the long-term market? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And they verify it like crazy. There's random checks. They will come knock on your door and be like, where's your stuff? Like, where's your stuff locked up in this Airbnb that says that you live here? Like, prove to us that you live here and that's why you're Airbnb. So there's no extra inventory coming from Airbnb. But there is going to be inventory if landlords know they have the ability to get rid of bad tenants. Landlords would be more open to purchasing more real estate.
Of course.
And you need more inventory to supply the rental market.
Of course.
On a more normal term. Right now, we have a lot of inventory for rentals.
Yeah, but I mean, literally, like, rewind 6, 12 months, we had like 10, 12, 15 offers for every rental. Like, I mean, it was impossible with the best, most perfect gold 10-star tenant to get a tenant a property. It was crazy. So inventory is definitely an issue, but there are different ways to go about getting inventory, I think.
Yeah, and I do think that we need landlords. We need landlords in this market. We need landlords to help with a housing issue that we have. Without landlords, there are no rental inventory. There isn't. We need landlords to invest in pre-construction so new inventory comes to market, because most end users aren't buying pre-construction. That's an investor role.
Yeah.
And without the investor buying it, there is no new inventory. So that's something to really think about. I think that they need to make things fair. They need to heavily invest in fixing the landlord-tenant board and not talk about rain tax.
Oh my gosh, the rain tax. And we're filming today. I
really want her on the podcast. I just want to ask why.
I actually thought the rain tax was
a joke, an April Fool's joke.
News.
Yeah.
And then I read more and went, oh my goodness gracious. But anyways, the rain tax.
We'll cover rain tax on the next episode.
Whole other conversation. I think really the two most important takeaways here is, number one, as a landlord, you can never vet enough. You can never get those ducks lined up, and you can never question and look through those applications more than ever. And I think as a tenant, you've got to be ready. You've got to be prepared. You've got to your point earlier, you've got to be honest about any blemishes that might be in your application. And you've got to put forward a completed, all ducks in a row application. Because I think those are the two components that really allow kind of the synergy between the landlords and the tenants and things to flow.
Yeah, definitely. And when it comes to being transparent with your applications, like, don't tell me there's no Fluffy and then Fluffy appears all over social media.
Oh, yeah.
We know Fluffy exists.
Yes. Yeah. Again, but this just comes down to, like, you want to start that relationship on the right foot. So if you have a dog and say you don't, just say you have a dog.
And also, like, there are certain landlords and certain agents that are more pet friendly.
Yes.
That's the thing. So if they call in advance and be like, would they be open to that? We'll say yes or no. And my usual answer is, yes, I would be open to it. But please send me a video of the dog or the cat or whatever being themselves. Like, sit down, roll over. Do they know basic tricks? Are they potty trained? Am I going to have an issue? Like, I want to know this ahead of time. And if the pet is trained, I don't have an issue.
Yeah.
But if I find out about it, not from you, then you weren't transparent on your application. And now that brings up an issue.
Well, of course. And listen, you want to start on the right foot. So if someone is about to trust the tenant and everything that they've submitted to take them into their home and allow that home to be their home, but you haven't even started with transparency, then how does that make the start of the relationship feel. It feels pretty off. So I think that's really, really important.
Okay. Well, I think that's all for today. If you have any questions about the renting process from a landlord or tenant perspective, feel free to reach out. Once again, it's Alana Saraditas
And Erica Reddy-Shaquette.
and you just listened to Property Playbook. If you like content like this, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe.